Hey everyone, hope you're doing great. Welcome back to my channel. In today's video, we'll dive into what if Naruto discovered a secret the Hokage tried to erase. Smash that subscribe button, and be sure to peek at the description below. Let's begin. The heat in Konoha was oppressive. It was a physical weight, pressing down on the tile roofs, baking the dust in the streets, and turning the air into a shimmering haze that distorted the horizon. It was the kind of midsummer afternoon where the cicadas screamed so loudly they drowned out thought, a ceaseless, rhythmic drone that grated on the nerves. For most of the village, the heat was an excuse to slow down. Shopkeepers fanned themselves lazily under awnings. Older shinobi sat in the shade of the tea houses, nursing cold drinks. But for the genin who had survived the preliminaries of the Chunin exams, there was no rest. There was only the ticking clock. 1 month. 30 days to bridge the gap between promising rookie and killer, and for Naruto Uzumaki, the heat was just one more thing trying to suffocate him. Part 1. The stagnant water. Again. Focus, Naruto. You are flailing like a drowning cat. The voice cut through the humid air, nasally and condescending. Ebisu stood on the wooden deck of the training ground's water reservoir, his arms crossed, his dark sunglasses reflecting the harsh sunlight. He looked perfectly dry, perfectly composed, and perfectly annoying. Naruto, on the other hand, was soaking wet. He stood on the surface of the water, his knees bent, trembling with exertion. Blue chakra flared erratically around the soles of his sandals. The water beneath him wasn't smooth. It was churning, rippling violently in response to his turbulent control. I am focusing. Naruto gritted out, sweat stinging his eyes. This isn't working. Standing on water isn't going to help me beat Niji. Control is the foundation of all ninjutsu, Ebisu lectured, pushing his glasses up his nose. The Hokage assigned me to you because your fundamentals are atrocious. You rely on brute force. Niji Hyuga is a master of the gentle fist. He will dismantle your brute force before you can even throw a punch. If you cannot maintain a constant, calm flow of chakra, he will shut down your tenketsu in seconds. Naruto growled low in his throat. He knew Ebisu was right. That was the worst part. He remembered the preliminary match. He remembered Hinata coughing up blood. He remembered Niji's cold, white eyes and the absolute certainty in his voice when he spoke of destiny. Destiny. The word tasted like ash. Naruto hated it. But he feared that Niji might be right. I need more, Naruto pleaded, his concentration slipping. The water splashed up his pant leg. Teach me a jutsu. Something powerful. Sasuke is training with Kakashi-sensei right now. They're probably learning Chidori or something amazing. And I'm here, getting wet. Sasuke Uchiha is a genius of the prestigious Uchiha clan, Ebisu said, and there was a tone in his voice, a subtle, unconscious reverence, that made Naruto's stomach turn. His capacity for learning is different from yours. You are energetic. We must work with what we have. What we have. Translated, you are the dead last. You get the leftovers. Naruto looked at Ebisu. He saw the way the special jounin looked at him. It wasn't hatred. Naruto was used to the cold glares of the villagers, the burning eyes of the shopkeepers who chased him away. This was almost worse. It was dismissal. Ebisu looked at him like he was a waste of time. A chore assigned by the Hokage that he wanted to finish as quickly and painlessly as possible. You don't think I can win, Naruto said quietly. The chakra around his feet sputtered. Ebisu sighed, a long, exaggerated exhalation. Naruto, let us be realistic. Niji Hyuga is the strongest genin to come out of the academy in years. Your performance in the preliminaries, while spirited, relied heavily on luck and unexpected flatulence. We are trying to ensure you do not embarrass the village in the finals. Winning is a secondary concern. The silence that followed was louder than the cicadas. Embarrass the village. That's what he was. A risk. A blemish. I see, Naruto whispered. Good. Now reset your chakra flow and... No. Excuse me? Naruto looked up. His blue eyes were hard, devoid of their usual goofy warmth. I said no. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to stand here and let you look down on me. Naruto, you cannot simply walk away from training. This is a direct order from the Lord Hokage. The old man wants me to get stronger," Naruto yelled, the frustration finally boiling over. "He didn't send you to teach me. He sent you to babysit me so I don't get in the way." "Well, forget it. If nobody's gonna teach me, I'll teach myself." Naruto leaped. He didn't use the water walking technique. He just jumped, splashing heavily, scrambling up the concrete embankment of the reservoir. "Come back here this instant," Ebisu shouted, taking a step forward. "Transformation jutsu!" Naruto shouted midair. Poof! A cloud of smoke erupted. Out of the smoke, a dozen naked women appeared, giggling and posing. Ebisu froze. His face went bright red. His professional demeanor shattered in an instant as a fountain of blood erupted from his nose. He collapsed backward onto the wooden deck, twitching. Naruto landed on the other side of the fence, reverting to his normal form. He didn't laugh. Usually, taking down a jounin with the sexy jutsu was the highlight of his day. Today, it just felt pathetic. He adjusted his forehead protector, wiped the water from his face, and ran. He ran away from the training grounds, away from the expectations, and away from the gnawing fear that he was exactly what they thought he was, a failure. Part 2, The Scar of the Village. Naruto wandered for an hour. He moved through the village like a ghost, avoiding the main streets. He stuck to the rooftops and back alleys, the places where the shadows were long. He saw the village differently when he was in a mood like this. He saw the parents ushering their children inside when he passed. He saw the Umbu mask flashing briefly on a rooftop, watching him, always watching him. Not protecting him, watching him. Like a jailer, he needed to be alone. Truly alone. His feet carried him instinctively toward the Northwest District. Sector 4. It was a part of Konoha that the shiny brochures didn't show. 12 years ago, the Nine Tails had rampaged through the village. The creature's tails had leveled entire city blocks. Most of the village had been rebuilt, stronger and better than before. But the administrative district near the cliffside, where the old archives and logistics warehouses stood, had been crushed so thoroughly, and was deemed so non-essential compared to housing, that it had simply been boarded up. Fences with signs reading danger, unstable structure, and keep outlined the perimeter. Vines and weeds had claimed the chain link, turning the area into a green, overgrown jungle of concrete and rust. Naruto hopped the fence easily. The noise of the village died instantly. The cicadas were quieter here, muffled by the heavy canopy of overgrown trees that blocked out the sun. The air smelled of wet rot, old paper, and dust. "Perfect," Naruto muttered, kicking a rusted can down the cracked street. He walked past hollowed-out buildings. Windows stared back at him like the empty eye sockets of skulls. This was a graveyard of history. He stopped in front of a massive, domed structure that had partially collapsed. The stone lintel above the entrance was cracked, but he could make out the engraving, Department of Intelligence and Archives Auxiliary Hall B. It looked sturdy enough. And big. Big enough to practice summoning without breaking a window and getting yelled at. "Okay, Jiraiya-sensei showed me the basics," Naruto said to himself, stepping through the gaping hole in the wall. The interior was cavernous. Shafts of sunlight pierced through holes in the high, vaulted ceiling, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. The floor was a mess of debris, but the center was relatively clear. "The Toad Sage said I need to use the red chakra," Naruto murmured, looking at his hands. "The fox's chakra. But I hate asking him for it." He closed his eyes. He tried to reach inside, to that dark sewer in his mind where the beast lived. He could feel it, a burning, malevolent heat simmering just beneath his skin. "Just a little," Naruto whispered. "Just enough to summon a boss toad. Just enough to show them." He bit his thumb. Hard. The pain was sharp and grounding. He smeared the blood across his palm. He began to weave the signs. Boar. Dog. Bird. Monkey. Ram. Summoning jutsu. He slammed his hand onto the cracked concrete floor. He pushed his chakra down. But he pushed too hard. He was angry. He was humiliated. And the Nine Tails, sensing that volatility, didn't just give him a cup of chakra. It flooded the pipes. A surge of red, bubbling energy erupted from Naruto's hand. It wasn't a summoning. It was an explosion. Crack boom. The concrete floor, weakened by 12 years of neglect and rain, couldn't handle the sudden injection of tailed beast density. The structural integrity failed catastrophically. The floor disintegrated. Crap! Naruto yelled as the ground vanished beneath his feet. He fell. He crashed through the subflooring, through rotting timber and plaster. Dust filled his lungs. He hit something hard, tumbled, and kept falling. It wasn't a simple basement. He fell past one level, then another. He landed with a heavy thud on cold, hard metal. "Ah wow!" Naruto groaned, rolling onto his back. He lay there for a moment, staring up at the jagged hole he had created, 3 stories above him. A single shaft of sunlight reached down, illuminating the dust cloud he had raised. He sat up, rubbing his bruised hip. That didn't go as planned. No, Toad. He stood up and dusted off his orange jumpsuit. He looked around. Where the heck am I? He wasn't in a basement anymore. The walls here weren't made of the village's standard stone or wood. They were steel plates, riveted together. The air was frigid, significantly colder than the sweltering heat above. It smelled sterile. Like ozone and old ink. He was in a corridor. Fluorescent lights flickered erratically overhead, triggered perhaps by his seismic entrance. The hallway stretched out into darkness in both directions. On the wall next to him was a painted symbol. It wasn't the leaf. It was a stylized, angular swirl. And beneath it, the tattoo mark of the ANBU Black Ops. An ANBU bunker? Naruto whispered. He felt a prickle of unease. He wasn't supposed to be here. If the ANBU found him, they wouldn't just scold him. They'd drag him to TI, torture and interrogation. "I gotta get out of here," he said, turning to look for a way to climb back up the hole. But as he turned, he felt it. It was a sensation he had never felt before, yet it was intimately familiar. It was like hearing a voice you forgot you knew. A thrumming, magnetic pull coming from the darkness deeper down the hall. It felt like him. It felt like the loneliness he woke up with every day. It felt like the cold stares. It felt like the question mark that had hung over his head since birth. Come. It wasn't a word. It was a feeling. Naruto froze. His ninja training screamed at him to leave. Tactical retreat. Unidentified territory. But Naruto was never good at following orders. He swallowed hard, drew a kunai, and stepped into the darkness. "Is anyone there?" His voice echoed, flat and dead against the metal walls. No answer. He followed the pull. He walked past doors labeled supply, armory, and dormitory. All were rusted shut or stripped bare. This place had been abandoned a long time ago. The hallway ended at a massive blast door. It was circular, like the vault of a bank, but made of a dark, chakra-absorbent metal. There was no handle. No keyhole. In the center of the door was a complex fuinjutsu array, a ceiling script painted in dried, brown ink. The pull was overwhelming here. It made his heart hammer against his ribs. Naruto stood before the door. He looked at the seal. The characters were spiral-like. Uzumaki style. Though he didn't know that name yet, the geometry resonated with something in his blood. "What are you hiding?" he whispered. He reached out. His hand trembled. His thumb, still wet with the blood from his failed summoning attempt, brushed against the center of the seal. The reaction was instantaneous. The seal didn't repel him. It drank him. A crimson light flared from the ink, tracing the lines of the seal. The dry brown turned to a vibrant, glowing red. The heavy machinery inside the door groaned, the sound of gears grinding off a decade of rust. A mechanical voice, distorted by time and static, crackled from a hidden speaker. "Biosignature detected. Analyzing. Match found. Project J9. Genetic marker, Uzumaki. Lockdown override. Authorized." Naruto stepped back, kunai raised. "Who's there? What is Project J9? Clank. Hiss. Pneumatic pistons fired. The massive steel door swung inward with a shriek of metal on metal. Cold air rushed out, carrying the scent of preserved paper and secrets. Naruto peered inside. It was a small room, lined with empty metal shelves. It looked like a secure archive that had been cleaned out in a hurry, except for one thing. In the center of the room, bolted to the floor, was a heavy iron desk. And on that desk sat a single, black lacquer box. It sat there like an idol in a temple. The only thing left in the dark. Naruto sheathed his kunai. He walked toward the desk. The silence in the room was heavy, pressing against his ears. He looked at the box. There was a paper talisman pasted across the lid. Top secret. Eyes only. Hokage. Project. Red spiral. Hokage? Naruto breathed. This is the old man's stuff? He hesitated. If he opened this, there was no going back. This was treason. This was stealing state secrets. But the pull was gone now, replaced by a cold certainty. The answers to the questions he didn't know how to ask were in this box. He reached out and peeled off the talisman. It came away easily, the adhesive long since dried. He opened the lid. Inside lay a scroll. It was thick, wrapped in black silk. The paper was yellowed parchment, high quality. Naruto picked it up. It was heavy. He unrolled the first section on the dusty desk. The calligraphy was sharp, bureaucratic, and utterly devoid of emotion. Part 3, The Protocol. Document 884-B. Classification S rank. Subject, Containment and Psychosocial Conditioning of Jinchuriki 9. Target, Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto stared at the characters. He blinked, thinking maybe it was a genjutsu. Maybe the heat had finally gotten to him. Target, Uzumaki Naruto. Target? He whispered. He began to read. He wasn't a scholar. He struggled with some of the kanji, with the stiff military phrasing. But he understood enough. He understood too much. Mission objective, to ensure the absolute loyalty of the Nine-Tails vessel to the office of the Hokage, and the village of Konoha, given the catastrophic failure of the previous vessel's containment, resulting in the incident of October 10th, the new vessel must be managed not merely physically, but psychologically. 2. Isolation protocols. The subject is to be raised within the general populace but kept socially isolated. While physical harm to the subject is forbidden, the natural resentment of the civilian populace regarding the Kyuubi is to be permitted and monitored, but not suppressed. Reasoning. A child raised in a supportive community develops diverse bonds of loyalty, friends, mentors, neighbors. A child raised in isolation, who is rejected by the herd, will desperately seek the approval of the alpha authority figure. Naruto felt his knees go weak. He slumped against the desk, his eyes glued to the paper. Permitted. The time the shopkeeper threw a mask at him? Permitted. The time the parents pulled their kids away from the swings when he approached? Permitted. The way the teachers ignored him until he pulled a prank? Permitted. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't just ignorance. It was policy. He read on. 3. The Savior Complex. The third Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, will position himself as the sole source of benevolence in the subject's life. By allowing the village to be the stick and the Hokage to be the carrot, the subject will imprint on the Hokage as a surrogate father figure. Projected outcome. The subject will view the village's acceptance as the ultimate prize and the Hokage's word as absolute law. He will endure any hardship to protect the one source of validation he possesses. No. Naruto whimpered. A tear hit the parchment, spreading the ink of the word validation. He buys me ramen. He smiles at me. He calls me Naruto-kun, the alpha authority figure. It was a script. The old man was acting. Naruto felt a nausea rising in his gut, violent and sour. He remembered every time he had sat in the Hokage's office, crying about being lonely, and the old man had just puffed on his pipe, given him a few coins, and sent him back out into the cold. He didn't fix it because he didn't want to fix it. He wanted Naruto broken. He wanted Naruto desperate. Why? Naruto choked out. I'm just a kid. Read the rest. A voice hissed. Naruto jumped. The voice wasn't outside. It was inside. It came from the seal on his stomach. Shut up, fox, Naruto muttered, clutching his belly. Not now. Read it, brat. Read what they stole from you. Read who you are. Naruto's trembling hands unrolled the scroll further. He reached the section titled Appendix A, Heritage Suppression. Directive. The identity of the subject's biological parents is to be classified as top secret, S rank. Father, Minato Namake's 4th Hokage. Mother, Kushina Uzumaki, previous Jinchuriki. Rationale for suppression. 1. Protection from foreign enemies, Iwagakure, Kumogakure. 2. Prevention of ego inflation. If the subject knows he is the son of the 4th, He may develop a sense of entitlement or independence. He must believe he is a nobody so that he strives endlessly to prove his worth to the system. Action. The surname Namikaze is to be withheld. The subject will take the mother's surname, but the history of the Uzumaki clan, royalty of Uzushigakure, is to be omitted from his education. The world stopped. The silence in the vault was absolute. Naruto stared at the name. Minato Namikaze. He looked up, his eyes unfocused, staring at the metal wall. He saw the face carved into the mountain. The spiky hair. The jawline. The eyes. The fourth. Naruto's voice broke. He remembered asking Iruka once who his parents were. Iruka had looked away. He remembered asking the old man. The old man had said, "It doesn't matter who they were, Naruto. What matters is who you are." "Liar," Naruto whispered. "You liar." He was the son of the hero. He was the son of the man who saved the village. He should have been royalty. He should have been celebrated. He should have had people telling him stories about his dad, about his mom. Instead, he drank expired milk and lived in an apartment filled with garbage because he didn't know how to clean it. He was treated like a disease. "They watched me," Naruto said, his voice rising, vibrating with a rage he had never known existed. "They watched me paint graffiti on my own father's face, and they laughed." He looked back at the scroll. At the bottom, the final insult. Authorized by Hiruzen Sarutobi, 3rd Hokage, Danzo Shimura, Commander of Route, Hamura Mitokado, Council Elder, Koharu Yudatane, Council Elder, the entire government. The whole village leadership. They had all signed off on his misery. They had held a meeting, discussed how to make a little boy lonely enough to be useful, and signed a paper. Something inside Naruto snapped. It wasn't the loud snap of a branch breaking. It was the quiet, structural failure of a foundation giving way. The will of fire, that warm, fuzzy philosophy Iruka had taught him, that belief that the village was a family, flickered and died. Family? Naruto laughed. It was a jagged, wet sound. "This isn't a family. It's a farm." "Yes." The Ninetales' voice was louder now, smooth as silk wrapped around a razor blade. "I watched it happen, Naruto. I watched them take you from your mother's dying arms. I watched them seal me into you. And then I watched them toss you into a crib and plan how to break you. I tried to warn you. I tried to make you angry. Because anger is the only thing that is real." "Shut up," Naruto said, but there was no heat in it. "They hate you. They fear you. And the only one who pretended to love you did it to put a leash on your neck. Look at you. Wearing their headband. Fighting their wars. Begging for their scraps." Naruto looked at the metal plate on his forehead. The symbol of the leaf. He reached up and untied it. The cloth fell into his hands. It felt heavy. "They stole my life," Naruto whispered. Tears dripped onto the metal plate. "They stole my mom and dad." He imagined a life where he knew. A life where the 3rd Hokage told him the truth. "Your dad was a hero, Naruto. You have big shoes to fill." He would have worked just as hard. He would have loved the village just as much. Maybe more. But they didn't trust him. They didn't trust the son of the 4th Hokage to be loyal. They had to manufacture it. The betrayal hurt worse than any physical wound. It was a cold knife in the back from the grandfather he adored. The room began to heat up. Red chakra started to leak from Naruto's skin. It wasn't the bubbling, uncontrolled rage of the bridge in the land of waves. This was different. This was cold. This was focused. The dust on the floor began to swirl away from him. The scroll on the desk rattled. Naruto rolled the scroll up. His movements were mechanical. "I'm keeping this," he said. His voice sounded different. Deeper. Older. He shoved the black scroll into his equipment pouch, right next to his shuriken. "What will you do?" Kurama asked, curiosity piqued. "Burn the village down? I can help with that. Break the seal, and we can turn this wretched place to ash." Naruto stood there, the red chakra coating him like a cloak. His eyes had changed. The blue was gone, replaced by the vertical slit of the fox, glowing crimson in the dark. He looked at the headband in his hand. He could leave. He could run right now. He could go to the sound, or the mist. He could become a missing Nin. But then, the old man wins. If he runs, he proves them right. He proves he was just an unstable weapon. He proves he needed to be caged. Naruto tied the headband back on. But he didn't tie it tight. He tied it like a reminder. No, Naruto said, his voice a low growl. I'm not going to burn it down. That's too easy. He turned toward the door. I'm going to win, Naruto said. I'm going to win their stupid tournament. I'm going to make them cheer for me. And then, I'm going to take that hat. He wasn't talking about a dream anymore. He was talking about a conquest. I'm going to become Hokage, Naruto said, the red chakra flaring, casting long, demonic shadows against the walls. Not so they acknowledge me, but so I can look down on them. Oh ho! The fox chuckled, a deep rumbling sound. Now that sounds interesting. Naruto walked out of the vault. He didn't look back at the empty box. He walked back down the dark corridor, the red chakra fading but the feeling remaining, a cold shard of ice in his heart where the warmth used to be. He climbed up the rubble, while walking up the shaft he had created, and vaulted back onto the ground floor of the ruins. The sun had set. The village was bathed in twilight. The lights of Konoha were flickering on, warm and inviting from a distance. Naruto stood in the opening of the ruined archive, looking down at the village. He saw the Hokage tower illuminated by spotlights. He saw the face of the fourth Hokage, his father, staring blindly out over the people who had erased his name. Naruto clenched his fist. I'm not your weapon, old man, he whispered to the wind. And I'm not your grandson. He turned and leaped into the trees, vanishing into the night. He had training to do. And for the first time, he wasn't training to protect the village. He was training to survive it. The morning sun did not bring warmth. It brought exposure. Naruto sat on the floor of his apartment, his back pressed against the cold leg of his bed. The room was a disaster zone of his own making. Cups of instant ramen stacked in leaning towers of styrofoam, piles of dirty laundry that smelled of sweat and river water, scroll fragments and kunai scattered across the floorboards. Usually, this mess was a comfort. It was his mess. It was proof that he existed, that he occupied space in a village that tried very hard to pretend he was invisible. But today, the apartment felt different. It didn't feel like a home. It felt like a containment cell. In his lap lay the black scroll. He hadn't slept. He hadn't changed out of his dust-caked orange jumpsuit. He had spent the last 8 hours staring at the paper, reading the same lines over and over again until the kanji burned into his retinas like the afterimage of a flash bomb. Subject: conditioning, isolation, ego suppression. It's a fake, Naruto whispered. His voice was raspy, unused since his scream into the wind the night before. It has to be a fake. Someone's messing with me. Maybe it's Mizuki again. Or a genjutsu trap? He tried to laugh, but it came out as a dry, hacking cough. He lifted the scroll to throw it across the room. He wanted to see it hit the wall. He wanted to rip it to shreds and flush it down the toilet, and go get a Chiraku ramen and pretend the world was simple again. He wanted to go back to being the idiot who yelled about becoming Hokage, but his hand wouldn't let go. His fingers were locked around the black silk wrapping. His body knew what his mind was trying to reject. The scroll was real. The chakra residue on the seal was real. The signature at the bottom, that elegant, flowing script of Hiruzen Sarutobi, was the same signature that was on his monthly allowance envelope. Naruto looked around the room. He looked at the window, direct line of sight to the Hokage tower. He looked at the front door. The lock was flimsy. A civilian could pick it. Minimal security. Easy access for monitoring. He looked at the empty milk carton on the table. Nutritional neglect. Permitted. Stop it, he hissed, closing his eyes and pressing the heels of his hands into his sockets until he saw stars. Just stop thinking. But the dam had broken. The water was rushing in, and he was drowning in memory. Every memory he had was being rewritten in real time. Flashback, age 5. The orphanage. He remembered the matron. She had cold eyes. She had told him there was no room for him anymore. Administrative restructuring, she had said. He had cried on the steps. He had thought he was a bad kid. He thought he had been too loud, too messy. The truth, a rude agent had likely handed her a form. Isolate the subject. Remove the support network. Flashback, age 8. The academy playground. He remembered the day he made a friend. A boy from a civilian family. They had played ninja in the sandbox for an hour. It was the best hour of his life. The next day, the boy wouldn't look at him. The boy's mother had dragged him away, looking terrified. The truth, had the mother been warned? Had an ANBU in a porcelain mask whispered a threat in her ear? Keep away from the asset. Naruto curled in on himself, hugging the scroll to his chest like a teddy bear made of razor blades. Why? He moaned. I loved you, old man. I loved you. Part 1. The witness in the cage. The air in the room grew heavy. The shadows in the corners seemed to stretch, defying the morning light streaming through the window. The smell of sulfur and damp fur began to overpower the smell of old ramen. Naruto felt the tug. It wasn't the violent, churning rage that usually heralded the fox's influence. This was a deliberate summons. A mental hook snagging his consciousness and dragging him down. He didn't fight it. He was too tired. The world dissolved into water. Drip, drip. Naruto opened his eyes. He was standing in the sewer. The golden bars of the great gate towered above him, rising into the darkness. The water around his ankles was murky, but calm. Behind the bars, two massive eyes, slitted and glowing with malevolent intelligence, stared down at him. You look pathetic, the Nine Tails rumbled. Its voice vibrated through Naruto's skeleton. Even more so than usual. Naruto didn't yell back. He didn't scream, stupid fox. He just walked forward until he was standing right in front of the bars. He looked small. Defeated. Did you know? Naruto asked. His voice echoed in the vast, empty chamber. The great fox shifted. The sound of massive claws scraping against stone filled the air. The beast lowered its head until its snout was level with the bars. Hot breath, smelling of blood and ancient fire, washed over Naruto. Did I know about your lineage? Yes. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted you to suffer, the fox said simply. There was no malice in it, just a statement of fact. I am hatred, boy. I am the manifestation of malice. Why would I give you comfort? Knowing you were the son of the man who sealed me, that would have given you pride. It would have given you strength. I wanted you weak. I wanted you to break so I could escape. Naruto looked down at the water. At least you're honest. I am always honest, the fox sneered. Deception is a human trait. It is what your kind does best. You build villages on lies and call it peace. Naruto looked up. The scroll. The isolation. The ANB watching me. Ah, the fox's eyes narrowed. That. Was it true? The fox let out a low huff, a sound that might have been a laugh if it weren't so cruel. You humans are so unobservant. You sensed them, didn't you? The shadows that moved when there was no wind, the presence on the rooftops? I thought they were protecting me, Naruto whispered. From assassins. From the other villages. Protecting you? The fox bared its teeth in a terrifying grin. Kit, do you remember the winter you were 6? You were sick. Fever high enough to boil your brain. You wandered out into the snow, looking for help. Naruto nodded slowly. He remembered. He had collapsed in an alleyway. A woman approached you, the fox recounted. A civilian. She had a kind face. She had a blanket. She reached out to pick you up. Naruto frowned. No. I remember waking up in the hospital. Alone. Because she never reached you, Kurama hissed. A shadow dropped from the roof. An ANB with a mask of a weasel. He didn't strike you. He struck her. He paralyzed her with a look and whispered something. She dropped the blanket and ran as if the Reaper himself was at her heels. Then, the ANBU picked you up like a sack of potatoes and dumped you at the hospital entrance. Naruto felt a phantom chill. Why? Why chase her away? Because kindness creates loyalty, the fox said, its voice dripping with understanding of the dark tactic. If that woman had saved you, you would have loved her. You would have listened to her. And if she told you to hate the Hokage, you might have listened. They couldn't risk that. You are the weapon of the leaf. You must only be wielded by the hand of the Hokage. The weapon, the asset, the thing. Naruto sank to his knees in the sewer water. The protocol you read, Kurama continued, is the most effective torture I have ever seen. And I have lived a very long time. They didn't beat you. They didn't starve you to death. They simply pruned you. They cut off every branch of your life that didn't grow toward the sun. And Hiruzen Sarutobi made sure he was the only sun in your sky. He's the third Hokage, Naruto whispered, trembling. He's the professor. The god of shinobi. He is a politician, Kurama corrected. And you, Naruto Uzumaki, are his masterpiece. The fox leaned closer, its massive eye filling Naruto's vision. So, I ask you again. Now that you know you are a product, now that you know your pain was manufactured, what will you do? Naruto stared into the red abyss of the pupil. He felt something crack in his chest. It was the heavy, iron lock that he had placed on his own heart years ago. The lock that kept him smiling when he wanted to scream. The lock that kept him painting bright colors over the gray reality of his life. I don't know, Naruto whispered. Liar, Kurama purred. You know exactly what you want to do. You want to hurt them. No. I want the truth. Then wake up, the fox commanded. Wake up and look at them. Really look at them. And tell me if you still see the will of fire. Part 2, The Walk of the Ghost. Naruto woke up with a gasp. The apartment was sweltering now. The midday sun was beating down. He stood up. His legs felt stiff. He walked to the bathroom and splashed water on his face. He looked in the mirror. The whisker marks on his cheeks seemed darker, deeper. His eyes were blue, but they were dull. Flat. The spark was gone. He needed to go out. He couldn't stay in this box. If he stayed here, the walls would crush him. He secured the black scroll in a hidden compartment under a loose floorboard beneath his bed, a hiding spot he had made years ago for his treasures, mostly cool rocks and expired coupons. It felt fitting that the darkest secret of Konoha would lie there now. He walked out the door. The heat of the village hit him like a physical blow. The noise was overwhelming. Vendors shouting, children laughing, carts rattling. Normally, Naruto would be adding to the noise. He would be shouting, running, demanding attention. Look at me. I'm here. I'm going to be Hokage. Today, he was silent. He walked down the main street, hands in his pockets, head low. But his eyes were darting everywhere. Observation mode. He saw a mother walking with her son. The boy was pointing at a mask on a display stand. The mother smiled and patted his head. Affection. Pure. Unconditional. Naruto felt a pang of jealousy so sharp it felt like a kunai in the gut. He had never had that. He had the old man patting his head, but was it affection? Or was it positive reinforcement for a trained dog? He passed a group of chunin gossiping by a dango stand. Did you hear? The Hyuga prodigy is fighting the demon brat in the finals. Easy money. Niji will crush him. Good. Maybe it'll teach that thing a lesson. Walking around like he owns the place, Naruto didn't flinch. Usually, he would have yelled at them. I'm not a thing. I'm Naruto. But today, he heard the subtext. The demon brat. They didn't hate Naruto. They didn't even know Naruto. They hated the container. They hated the jail that held the monster that killed their families. And the Hokage had let them hate him. Protocol Section 2, the natural resentment of the civilian populace is to be permitted. Permitted, Naruto muttered under his breath. He stopped in front of a mask shop. The owner, a balding man with a perpetual scowl, was sweeping the front step. He looked up and saw Naruto. The scowl deepened. Go away. We don't want your business. Naruto looked at the man. Really looked at him. He saw the fear in the man's eyes. The way his grip tightened on the broom. Why? Naruto asked. His voice was quiet. The shopkeeper blinked, surprised by the lack of shouting. What? Why don't you want my business? My money is the same as everyone else's. I don't serve your kind, the man spat. My kind, Naruto repeated. You mean orphans? I mean monsters. Naruto stared at him. The Hokage tells you I'm a hero, doesn't he? He tells everyone that the fourth saved the village. The fourth killed the monster. The man argued. But you're just the cursed jar it's kept in. A jar that leaks. Naruto felt a strange calmness wash over him. It was the calmness of absolute clarity. You're not mean, Naruto said softly. You're just stupid. And you're scared. And the village likes you scared. What did you say to me, you little punk? The man raised the broom. Naruto didn't flinch. He just looked at the man's throat. He imagined the chakra pathway there. He imagined how easy it would be to collapse the windpipe. Attack. The thought was intrusive. Violent. Naruto turned and walked away before the thought could become an action. He walked past the academy. He saw the swing set. The solitary swing where he used to sit for hours, watching the other kids get picked up by their parents. He stopped. He saw a shadow on the roof of the academy. A flicker of gray. An ANBU. Naruto stared directly at the spot. I see you, he thought. I know you're there. Are you writing this down? Subject stared at a swing. Subject appears depressed. Conditioning holding steady. He felt a surge of nausea. The entire village felt like a stage set. A fake town built to trap one boy. Truman Show, but with ninjas and demons. He needed to get away. He needed to find a place that felt real. He turned toward the training grounds. Maybe if he punched a log until his knuckles bled, the world would make sense again. Part 3. The Architect of the Cage. Fate, it seemed, had a cruel sense of humor. Naruto turned the corner toward Training Ground 7 and ran smack into a wall of white robes. Oh! Careful there, young one. The voice was like warm honey. Like old parchment and pipe tobacco. It was the voice of safety. Naruto stumbled back, looking up. Standing there, flanked by 2 bodyguards who instantly tensed, was Hiruzen Sarutobi. The third Hokage. He wasn't wearing his combat gear. He was in his ceremonial robes, the red and white hat casting a shadow over his wrinkled, kindly face. He held a pipe in one hand and a small bag of sweets in the other. Naruto-kun, Hiruzen smiled. The eyes crinkled at the corners. It was a masterpiece of a smile. I haven't seen you since the preliminaries. How is your training coming along? Naruto froze. His heart hammered against his ribs like a trapped bird. The blood roared in his ears. Act normal. Do the jutsu. Transformation, happy Naruto. Naruto forced a grin. It felt like stretching rubber over a skull. Hey, old man. Training is great. Super tough. I'm gonna kick Niji's butt, believe it. The words tasted like bile. Hiruzen chuckled. A gentle, grandfatherly sound. That is the spirit. Ebisu tells me you have been energetic. Although I hear you gave him quite the nosebleed yesterday. He wasn't teaching me right, Naruto stammered. He couldn't look Hiruzen in the eye. He focused on the Hokage's chin. I needed to figure things out on my own. Independence is a virtue, Hiruzen nodded sagely. But do not push yourself too hard. The will of fire is about endurance, not just strength. The will of fire. Naruto felt a spasm in his right hand. He clenched it into a fist behind his back to stop the trembling. Hey, old man, Naruto said. His voice was a little too high, a little too brittle. I had a question. Oh? And what is that? Hiruzen took a puff of his pipe. The sweet smoke wafted over Naruto. It used to smell like comfort. Now it smelled like suffocation. My parents, Naruto said. The air around them seemed to freeze. The 2 bodyguards shifted their weight. Hiruzen's smile didn't falter, but his eyes, they hardened. Just for a fraction of a second. A microscopic shift from grandfather to dictator. We have discussed this, Naruto, Hiruzen said gently. I do not know who they were. They were simple shinobi who died in the war. There are no records. Liar. Top secret. S rank. Father, Minato Namikaze. Mother, Kushina Uzumaki. Right, Naruto said. He felt lightheaded. No records. I saw Niji. He has a whole clan. He talks about his father. I just wondered if my dad was anyone cool. Your father was a hero of the village, Hiruzen said. Because he fought for it. Just like you are doing. That is all that matters. Reverse victim and offender. Hiruzen was doing it right now. He was twisting the narrative. He was making Naruto feel guilty for asking, making the lack of information seem like a noble sacrifice. It doesn't matter who they were, Naruto. Stop being selfish. Here, Hiruzen said, reaching into his robe. He pulled out a small envelope. Your allowance for the month. I added a little extra. Buy yourself some good ramen. You need your strength for the finals. He held out the envelope. Naruto stared at the hand. It was an old hand spotted with age. A hand that had signed treaties. A hand that had signed death warrants. A hand that had signed the Red Spiral Protocol. Naruto reached out. His fingers brushed Hiruzen's. His skin crawled. It took every ounce of willpower not to slap the money away, to not scream. I don't want your money! I want my life back! He took the envelope. Thanks, old man, Naruto whispered. Make us proud, Naruto, Hiruzen said, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder. The touch burned. It felt like a brand. Property of Konoha. I will, Naruto said. I'll surprise everyone. Hiruzen patted his shoulder one last time, then walked past him, his bodyguards trailing in his wake like silent wraiths. Naruto stood there in the street. He held the envelope. He could feel Hiruzen walking away. He could feel the eyes of the villagers. He looked at the envelope. To Naruto-kun. He wanted to vomit. He turned and ran. He didn't run to the training ground. He ran to the nearest alleyway, ducked behind a dumpster, and dry heaved until his stomach muscles cramped. He spat bile onto the cobblestones. He wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. He lied, Naruto gasped, bracing himself against the brick wall. He looked right at me and lied. He didn't even blink. The denial was gone. The doubt was gone. The image of the kindly grandfather dissolved, replaced by the cold, calculating face of a military commander who saw people as resources. Naruto looked up at the strip of blue sky visible between the buildings. I'm not going to be your tool, he snarled. The chakra inside him churned. It wasn't just the fox's red chakra. It was his own. His own blue chakra, spiked with the adrenaline of betrayal. You want me to rely on you? Naruto whispered. You want me to be alone so I come crawling to you for approval? He pushed himself off the wall. He crushed the envelope in his fist. I'm going to find someone else, he decided. I'm going to find someone smart. Someone who can see the strings. He thought of his classmates. Sasuke? No. Sasuke was obsessed with Itachi. He wouldn't care. Sakura? She believed everything the teacher said. She was the perfect soldier. Hinata? She was too shy. She would crumble under the weight of this. Then, a face popped into his mind. A lazy face. A face that found everything troublesome. A guy who looked at the clouds because looking at the world was too exhausting. Shikamaru Nara. Shikamaru was a genius. Everyone knew it, even if he pretended to be an idiot. And more importantly, Shikamaru's dad was the Jounin commander. If anyone knew about secrets, it was the Nara clan. Naruto wiped the tears and sweat from his face. He adjusted his headband. The Red Spiral Protocol was designed to keep him isolated. The first step to breaking the protocol wasn't getting stronger. It was getting an ally. Game on, old man, Naruto hissed. He walked out of the alley. His step was different now. There was no bounce. There was a predatory grace to it. He moved like a ninja who had just realized he was in enemy territory. He headed toward the Nara compound. Part 4. The first crack in the mask. The sun began to dip lower, casting long, bloody shadows across the village. High up in the Hokage tower, Hiruzen Sarutobi stood by the window, watching the village below. He puffed on his pipe, the smoke curling against the glass. Report, he said softly to the empty room. An ANBU with a cat mask materialized from the shadows of the ceiling. He kneeled on the floor. Target confirmed, the ANBU said. Uzumaki Naruto has left the encounter. He proceeded to Sector 6. His demeanor? Hiruzen asked. He didn't turn around. Agitated, the ANBU reported. More so than usual. He appeared, distressed after your conversation. He was observed vomiting in an alleyway shortly after. Hiruzen sighed. A heavy, weary sound. The pressure of the exams is getting to him. He feels the weight of the village's expectations, even if he masks it with bravado. Shall we increase surveillance? No, Hiruzen said. Let him be. If he is stressed, pressing him will only make him volatile. Ebisu was a poor match, as I suspected. Jiraiya will return soon. He will handle the boy. Understood, Lord Hokage. The ANBU vanished. Hiruzen looked out at the stone faces on the mountain. He looked at Minato's face. Forgive me, Minato, Hiruzen whispered to the stone. It is a hard road I force him to walk. But he must walk it alone. Only through solitude will he learn to cherish the village as his family. He tapped his pipe on the sill, ash falling like gray snow. Hiruzen Sarutobi was the professor. He knew every jutsu in Konoha. He knew the political landscape of the 5 nations. But as he watched the sun set, he made a critical error. He assumed Naruto was still the same boy who craved his approval. He assumed the boy was vomiting from stress, not from disgust. He didn't know that the lock on the cage had been picked. He didn't know that the grandson had died in that alleyway. And something else, something much more like Kushina, and much more like the fox, had taken his place. The protocol was failing, and the red spiral was beginning to unwind. The Nara clan forest was a place where time seemed to slow down. It was a sanctuary of ancient timber and dappled light, where the deer roamed freely, stepping through the underbrush with the silence of ghosts. The air here smelled of damp earth, medicinal herbs, and the heavy, sweet scent of pine sap. It was a place designed for thinking, for slowing the heart rate, for letting the mind wander like a cloud across the sky. For Shikamaru Nara, this forest was his bedroom, his study, and his church. He lay on his back on a grassy knoll, hands laced behind his head, watching a cumulus cloud drift lazily toward the Hokage monument. Troublesome, he muttered to the grass. The Chunin exam finals were a month away. He was supposed to be training. Asuma had been nagging him about chakra control, about expanding his shadow range, about actually trying for once. But Shikamaru didn't see the point. He had been matched against Temari of the Sand. A wind user. Long range. A bad matchup. The logical move was to forfeit, save his energy, and go back to sleep. But something was itching at the back of his brain. It wasn't the exams. It was the atmosphere in the village. Since the preliminaries, the air in Konoha had felt tight. Like a bowstring pulled back just before the release. The invasion rumors were whispers, but Shikamaru listened to whispers. Snap. A twig broke. Shikamaru didn't move. He didn't tense. He simply shifted his eyes to the left, toward the dense tree line. You're loud, Shikamaru drawled. For a ninja, a figure stepped out of the shadows. It was Naruto. But it wasn't the Naruto that Shikamaru was used to. Usually, Naruto announced his arrival with a shout, a wave, or a clumsy tumble. He was a riot of orange and noise. This Naruto was quiet. He stood with his hands in his pockets, his shoulders hunched slightly. The orange jumpsuit was dusty, stained with grime that looked a day old. But it was his face that made Shikamaru sit up. Naruto wasn't smiling. He wasn't scowling. His face was a blank mask, his blue eyes scanning the clearing with a cold, analytical precision that belonged to a veteran jonin, not the class clown. I wasn't trying to be quiet, Naruto said. His voice was low. I was checking for deer. They have antlers. Antlers hurt. Shikamaru sat up fully, crossing his legs. He studied Naruto. He noticed the dark circles under the eyes. The slight tremor in the hands. You look like crap, Shikamaru said bluntly. Did Ebisu work you to death already? Or did you eat bad milk again? Naruto didn't rise to the bait. He walked over to the flat stone stump where Shikamaru kept a weathered shogi board permanently set up. He looked down at the pieces. I need to play, Naruto said. Shikamaru raised an eyebrow. Play? Shogi? You don't know how to play shogi. You think the king piece is the one that charges in first. Teach me, Naruto said. He sat down on the opposite stump. I need to understand strategy. Shikamaru sighed, scratching the back of his head. Man, this is a drag. I came here to nap, not to teach the rules of. Please, Shikamaru. The word cut through the laziness. It wasn't a whine. It was a plea. Shikamaru looked at Naruto's eyes again. He saw something there he recognized from his father's eyes when he came back from a mission briefing. He saw fear. Not the fear of a monster, but the fear of a truth. Shikamaru's genius wasn't just in tactics. It was in reading the board. And right now, Naruto was a piece that had suddenly changed its movement pattern. Fine, Shikamaru groaned, sitting up straight. But I'm not going easy on you. Pay attention. I'm only explaining this once. Part 1. The board. The game began slowly. Shikamaru explained the pieces. The pawns, Fu. The lance, Kyosha. The knight, Kaima. The generals. The king, Osho. The goal is to protect the king, Shikamaru explained, moving a pawn forward. If the king falls, the game is over. It doesn't matter how many pieces you have left. It doesn't matter how strong your rook is. If the king is trapped, you lose. Naruto stared at the board. The king, he murmured. That's the Hokage, right? Shikamaru moved a piece. That's what everyone thinks. The strongest piece. The leader. Naruto picked up a knight. The piece that moves in an L shape. The only piece that can jump over others. And this one? Naruto asked. The one that jumps into danger? The one that can be sacrificed to open a path? The knight, Shikamaru said. Useful for surprise attacks. But vulnerable if left unsupported. Naruto held the wooden piece tightly. What if? He started, then stopped. He placed the knight on the board. Shikamaru, you're smart. Like really smart. Everyone says you have an IQ over 200. Rumors, Shikamaru muttered. I just like puzzles. I have a puzzle, Naruto said. He didn't look at Shikamaru. He stared at the knight piece. A hypothetical one. For a prank I'm planning. Yeah. A big prank. Shikamaru sensed the lie immediately. It was a clumsy cover. But he played along. All right. Lay it on me. What's the scenario? Naruto took a breath. He moved his knight deep into Shikamaru's territory, a suicidal move. Imagine a village, Naruto began. A hidden village. And in this village there's a weapon. A very dangerous weapon. But the weapon looks like a person. Shikamaru's eyes narrowed slightly. He moved a gold general to block the knight. Okay. Standard shinobi stuff. Jinchuriki lore. Go on. This weapon, Naruto continued, his voice steady but flat. The village leaders are scared of it. They think it might go off. So, they decide they need to control it. Perfectly. They don't just want to lock it up. They want to make sure it never wants to leave. Shikamaru paused his hand over the board. He looked at Naruto. The description was getting specific. How do they do that? Shikamaru asked softly. They make sure the weapon is alone, Naruto said. They make sure nobody talks to it. Nobody loves it. They make sure the weapon is so lonely, so desperate for a connection, that when the leader, the king, smiles at it, the weapon thinks the king is a god. The weapon thinks the king is the only person in the world who cares. The wind rustled through the trees. The deer in the clearing lifted their heads, ears twitching. Shikamaru didn't move. His mind, usually a lazy river, was suddenly a waterfall of data processing. He looked at the boy sitting across from him. The orphan. The outcast. The boy everyone whispered about. The boy the third Hokage visited personally. Isolation, dependency, psychological conditioning. That's a very detailed scenario for a prank, Naruto, Shikamaru said carefully. I read a book, Naruto lied. About history. Hypothetical history. Naruto looked up. His eyes were burning. In this scenario, say the weapon found out. Say the weapon found the orders. Written down. Signed by the king. Naruto reached into his pocket. For a second, Shikamaru thought he was going to pull out a weapon. Instead, he pulled out a black shogi piece he must have painted himself. He slammed it onto the board. What does the weapon do, Shikamaru? Naruto asked. Does it flip the board? Does it kill the king? Or does it realize that the whole game was rigged from the start? Part 2, the shadow analysis. Shikamaru leaned back. He let out a long breath. He knew he should stop this conversation. He knew, instinctively, that this was dangerous territory. This was ANBU level, Black Ops. People disappear in the night territory. If his dad were here, Shikaka would tell him to walk away. Ignorance is a shield, he would say. But Shikamaru looked at Naruto. He saw the cracks in the mask. He saw a friend who was drowning. Hypothetically, Shikamaru said, his voice dropping to a whisper. If such a document existed, it would be called a containment protocol. Naruto flinched. The term was too close to the scroll, and Shikamaru continued, picking up a captured pawn and twirling it in his fingers. If the king signed it, it means the king doesn't see the weapon as a citizen. He sees it as an asset. A tool, Naruto repeated. Like a kunai. No, Shikamaru corrected. A kunai doesn't have feelings. A kunai doesn't need to be fed lies to make it sharp. This is more like training a dog. You starve the dog so it only eats from your hand. Naruto's face went pale. A dog. But here's the flaw in the strategy, Shikamaru said, his eyes sharpening. He placed his king piece in the center of the board. If the dog realizes it's being starved on purpose, it doesn't bite the hand that feeds it. It bites the throat. Naruto looked at his hands. I don't want to bite the throat. I want to know why. Why is easy, Shikamaru said. Fear. Power. Control. The village hidden in the leaves isn't just a happy family, Naruto. It's a military dictatorship. The Hokage is the dictator. A nice one usually, but when it comes to the safety of the village, the will of fire burns whatever fuel it needs to keep going. Shikamaru leaned forward, lowering his voice. You're the fuel, Naruto. The words hung in the air. Naruto closed his eyes. He had known it. He had read it. But hearing it from someone else, from the smartest guy in his class, made it real in a way the scroll couldn't. So everything was a lie? Naruto whispered. Iruka-sensei? Tuchi? You. Shikamaru hesitated. This was the crux of the matter. If Naruto believed everyone was in on it, he would snap. He would become the monster they feared. No, Shikamaru said firmly. That's the trick of the system. The king gives the orders. But the pawns have their own hearts. He pointed to the gold general. Iruka-sensei. He might have been told to stay away at first. Or told to watch you. But I saw him cry when you graduated. You can't fake that. People are messy, Naruto. The protocol might be cold, but the people living in it aren't. Naruto's shoulders shook. He took a deep, shuddering breath. So, the old man? He's the only one? He and the advisors, Shikamaru deduced. Danzo. Hamura. Koharu. The old generation. They think in terms of sacrifice. They sacrificed their humanity to win the wars, and they decided to sacrifice your childhood to win the next one. Naruto grabbed the king piece on the board. He squeezed it until the wood groaned. I found a scroll, Naruto confessed. He couldn't hold it back anymore. In the ruins of the archives. It says my parents. Shikamaru held up a hand. Stop. Naruto froze. Don't tell me, Shikamaru said rapidly, looking around the forest. If you tell me, I become a liability. If I know, they have to silence me too. And I value my lazy life. Right, Naruto said, shrinking back. Sorry, but Shikamaru continued, his eyes locking onto Naruto's. I can guess. You're an orphan. You have immense chakra. You were born the day the Kyuubi attacked. The fourth Hokage died that day. It doesn't take a genius to connect the dots, Naruto. It just takes someone who is willing to look. Naruto's eyes widened. You know, I suspect, Shikamaru corrected. And if my suspicion is right, then the tragedy isn't just that they hid it. It's that they erased your legacy to make you easier to control. Shikamaru moved his hand to the board. He swept the pieces off. This game is void, Shikamaru said. You can't play by the rules when the opponent wrote the rulebook to ensure you lose. Then how do I win? Naruto asked. You don't play shogi, Shikamaru said. You play Go. You surround them. You take their territory. You find the pieces they can't control. Like who? Like someone who is strong enough to defy the Hokage, Shikamaru said. Someone who knows the truth but isn't part of the council. Someone who was there when it started, Naruto thought. Kakashi-sensei? Too loyal, Shikamaru shook his head. He's ex-NBU. He follows orders. Then who? Shikamaru looked at the clouds again. Who was the fourth Hokage's teacher? Naruto blinked. He searched his memory. He didn't know much about history, but everyone knew the legendary Sannin. Jiraiya, Naruto whispered. The Toad Sage. He's in the village, Shikamaru said. I saw him peeping on the women's bathhouse yesterday. My mom chased him with a frying pan. He's training me, Naruto said. Or, he's supposed to be. He just makes me do chakra exercises while he does research. Jiraiya was the student of the third, Shikamaru listed. The teacher of the fourth. And the teammate of Orochimaru and Tsunade. If there is a secret about you, he knows it. And unlike the council, he wanders. He isn't stuck in the system. Naruto stood up. The lethargy was gone. A new purpose filled him. He knows, Naruto said, his fists clenching. And he's been acting like a perverted idiot this whole time. He didn't tell me either. Maybe he couldn't, Shikamaru suggested. Or maybe he's waiting for you to ask the right question. Naruto turned to leave. Thanks, Shikamaru. Naruto stopped. He looked back. Shikamaru was staring at the scattered shogi pieces on the grass. Be careful, Shikamaru said quietly. If you pull this thread, the whole sweater might unravel. And Konoha. Konoha is a sweater that's already fraying. I don't care about the sweater, Naruto said, his voice hard. I just want to know who knitted it. Naruto vanished into the trees. Shikamaru sat alone in the clearing. He looked at the king piece lying on its side in the dirt. Troublesome, he sighed. Really troublesome. He lay back down, but he couldn't relax. The clouds looked different now. They looked like smoke. Part 3, The Phantom Pains. Naruto moved through the village with a speed he rarely used. He wasn't running, he was hunting. He headed for the hot springs. As he moved, the city blurred around him. But his mind was sharp, replaying memories, twisting them until they fit the new shape of his reality. Flashback. He was 7. He was sitting on the Hokage monument, on the fourth's head. He liked sitting there. He didn't know why. It just felt safe. The third Hokage had found him there. You like this spot, Naruto? Hiruzen had asked. Yeah. I'm gonna be better than him. I'm gonna be the fifth. Hiruzen had smiled. A sad, pitying smile. You have a long way to go. Recontextualization. Hiruzen wasn't pitying his dream. He was pitying the irony. He was looking at the son sitting on the father's head, knowing he had made sure the son would never know whose stone hair he was gripping. Flashback. The academy graduation exam. He had failed the clone jutsu 3 times. Why? He had massive chakra reserves. The clone jutsu required delicate control. It was the worst possible match for him. Did they teach him that? No. Did they offer him an alternative? No. They let him fail. Until Mizuki tricked him into stealing the scroll. Wait, Mizuki. Naruto stopped on a rooftop. Mizuki had told him. That night in the forest, the village lied to you. They all know. You are the demon fox. Naruto had thought Mizuki was just crazy. Just evil. But Mizuki was the only one who had told him the truth. A twisted truth, but a truth nonetheless. And what happened to Mizuki? Locked away. Erased. They keep us stupid, Naruto realized. They didn't teach me chakra control because they wanted the Nine-Tails chakra to be my primary weapon. They wanted a cannon, not a ninja. He looked at his hands. Well, the cannon is waking up. Part 4. The Sage of Lies. The hot springs district was filled with steam and laughter. It was a place of relaxation, of vulnerability. Naruto landed on the roof of the main bathhouse. He didn't scream. He didn't barge in. He closed his eyes and sensed. He felt it. A massive, dense chakra signature. Powerful, earthy, and currently suppressed, likely to avoid detection while peeping. Jiraiya. Naruto dropped down into the alleyway behind the bathhouse. He saw the white-haired man giggling, peering through a hole in the wooden fence. Pure art. Pure research. Jiraiya. One of the legendary Sannin. The Toad Sage. And according to the scroll, the man who had abandoned him for 12 years. Naruto didn't shout pervy sage. He didn't kick him. He simply reached into his pouch and pulled out the black scroll. He walked up behind Jiraiya. Is the view worth it? Naruto asked. His voice was ice cold. Jiraiya jumped, fumbling with his notebook. Wah! Naruto! You almost gave me a heart attack. Don't sneak up on a ninja like that. I'm in the middle of crucial intelligence gathering. Jiraiya turned around, a goofy grin on his face, ready to launch into a lecture about the stealth needed for research. The grin died instantly. He saw Naruto's face. He saw the lack of light in the eyes. And then he saw the scroll in Naruto's hand, the black silk, the red seal wax, the distinctive S-rank markings of the Hokage's private archive. Jiraiya's demeanor shifted. The slouch vanished. The perverted uncle act evaporated, replaced by the imposing stance of a Sannin. Where did you get that? Jiraiya asked. His voice was deep, rumbling like thunder. Sector 4, Naruto said. The old archives. The floor broke. Give it to me, Naruto. That is dangerous information. I know, Naruto said. He didn't hand it over. He clutched it tighter. I read it. Jiraiya froze. You read it? All of it. The protocol. The conditioning. The orders to keep me alone. Naruto took a step forward. The names of my parents. Jiraiya flinched as if he had been slapped. He closed his eyes, a look of profound pain crossing his face. Naruto. Did you know? Naruto asked. Did you know they were doing this to me? Did you know they were training me like a dog? Jiraiya opened his eyes. They were filled with regret, but also a steely resolve. I knew about your parents. I agreed to keep their identities secret. It was for your protection. Minato had many enemies. If Iwabikure knew you were his son, they would have sent hit squads when you were in diapers. I don't care about the secrets. Naruto yelled, his composure cracking. I care about the lies. The isolation. The scroll says they permitted the village to hate me. They wanted me to be lonely so I would rely on the old man. Did you know about that? Jiraiya hesitated. That hesitation was the damning evidence. I was away, Jiraiya said quietly. I was tracking Orochimaru. I was managing the spy network. I left your care to Hiruzen. I trusted him to do what was best. You trusted him, Naruto spat. And you never checked? You never visited? In 12 years, you never came to see if Minato's son was happy? I couldn't, Jiraiya pleaded. If I came back, it would draw attention to you. Bullshit! Naruto screamed. The red chakra flared, cracking the cobblestones beneath his feet. You're a Sannin. You could have visited in disguise. You could have sent a toad. You could have done anything. Naruto threw the scroll at Jiraiya. Jiraiya caught it. He looked down at the damning document. He scanned the psychosocial conditioning section. His face grew paler with every line. He hadn't known this part. He knew about the secrecy. He knew about the burden. But he hadn't known about the engineering of Naruto's trauma. He hadn't known Hiruzen had codified the loneliness into a protocol. I didn't know, Jiraiya whispered. I swear on my life, Naruto. I didn't know it was this bad. I thought he was just strict. I thought he was trying to harden you. He hardened me all right, Naruto said, his voice trembling. He hollowed me out. Naruto turned his back on Jiraiya. Naruto, wait. We can talk about this. I can explain Minato to you. I can tell you about Kushina. I don't want your stories, Naruto said. Not now. If you tell me now, it's just damage control. It's just you trying to make yourself feel better. Then what do you want? Naruto looked over his shoulder. The fox's eyes were slit, bleeding into his own blue irises. I want to get strong, Naruto said. But not for you. And not for the village. Naruto, you can't go rogue. You're the Jinchuriki. I'm not going rogue, Naruto said. I'm going to win the exams. I'm going to beat Niji. I'm going to take the Chunin vest. And I'm going to do it without your help. You need me to teach you to control the fox's chakra, Jiraiya warned. If you try to use it alone, it will consume you. It's already consuming me, Naruto said. But at least the fox is honest about hating me. Naruto leaped onto the fence. Don't follow me, Naruto warned. If I see a toad, I'll cook it. He vanished into the gathering darkness. Jiraiya stood alone in the alleyway, clutching the black scroll. The sounds of laughter from the bathhouse seemed a million miles away. Sarutobi-sensei, Jiraiya muttered, his grip tightening on the scroll until the wood groaned. What have you done? Jiraiya looked at the spot where Naruto had vanished. He saw the boy's silhouette burned into his mind. It wasn't the silhouette of a prankster. It was the silhouette of a storm. He's not Minato, Jiraiya realized. And he's not Kushina. He looked at the darkening sky. He's something we made. And now we have to live with him. Part 5, The Path to Darkness. Naruto ran. He ran until his lungs burned. He ran until he was deep in the forests of Training Ground 44, the forest of death. It was fitting. The place of his first real trauma. The place where Orochimaru had bitten him. He sat by the river, breathing hard. He was truly alone now. The old man was the architect. Jiraiya was the neglectful guardian. Kakashi was the soldier. There was no one. Good. Kurama whispered in his mind. Attachments make you weak. Sever them. They're severed, Naruto said out loud. He looked at his reflection in the water. He saw a stranger. He remembered Shikamaru's words. You play go. You surround them. Naruto dipped his hand into the water. I need power, he said. Not the power they give me. My power. He began to weave hand signs. Not for the summoning jutsu. Not for a Rasengan. He started practicing the basics. Chakra control. Tree walking. Water walking. He did it for hours. He did it until he collapsed. Then he got up and did it again. He would survive. He would win. And then, he would change the rules of the game. High above, on a branch, a snake watched him. A small, white snake with slitted amber eyes. It flicked its tongue, tasting the air. Tasting the resentment. It slithered away into the darkness, carrying a message to its master. The vessel is cracking. It is time to pour in the poison. The alleyway behind the bathhouse was a narrow strip of shadow, caught between the steaming wooden walls of the hot springs and the crumbling brick of a storage warehouse. The air smelled of sulfur, soap, and the damp rot of old wood. Usually, this place echoed with the distant sounds of splashing water and laughter. Tonight, it was a vacuum. Naruto stood on the cobblestones, his small frame casting a long, jagged shadow against the fence. In his hand, the black scrolls seemed to absorb the dim light of the street lamps. Jiraiya, the Toad Sage, one of the legendary Sannin, stood opposite him. The goofy grin, the exaggerated perverted posture, it had all evaporated. What remained was a man who looked suddenly very old, and very tired. Naruto, Jiraiya said. His voice was no longer the booming baritone of the kabuki actor. It was a low rumble, laced with caution. Hand me the scroll. That is classified material. S rank. Just holding it is considered treason. Treason, Naruto repeated. The word rolled off his tongue, foreign and heavy. Is it treason to read about your own life? Is it treason to know who you are? Naruto didn't hand it over. He gripped it tighter. The knuckles of his hand turned white. You knew, Naruto said. It wasn't a question anymore. It was an accusation. You knew who my parents were. And you left me. Jiraiya flinched. It was a subtle movement, a tightening of the jaw, a flicker of the eyelids, but to Naruto, whose senses were heightened by the bubbling chakra of the Nine Tails, it was as obvious as a scream. It's complicated, Jiraiya said softly. No! Naruto shouted. The shout cracked the silence, causing a stray cat on a nearby roof to bolt. It's not complicated. It's written down. Ink on paper. Subject, Uzumaki Naruto. Father, Minato Namikaze. Mother, Kushina Uzumaki. He threw the names at the Sannin like shuriken. My dad was the fourth Hokage. Naruto's voice trembled, tears stinging the corners of his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. My mom was the Jinchuriki before me. And you were his teacher. Jiraiya sighed, his shoulders slumping. The facade was gone completely now. He looked at the boy, really looked at him, and saw the ghost of Minato in the blue eyes and the fire of Kushina in the messy blonde hair. Yes, Jiraiya admitted. I was his teacher. I was his mentor. And I was supposed to be your godfather. The word hung in the humid air. Godfather. Naruto felt like he had been punched in the gut. He took a step back, staggering slightly. Godfather? Naruto whispered. You were supposed to take care of me? Minato named me in his will, Jiraiya said, his voice thick with regret. He wanted me to look after you if anything happened. Then where were you? Naruto screamed. The red chakra flared around him, blowing a cloud of dust away from his feet. Where were you when the villagers threw rocks at me? Where were you when I was eating instant ramen every night because no one would sell me fresh food? Where were you when I was crying myself to sleep wondering why nobody wanted me? Jiraiya took a step forward, reaching out a hand. Naruto, listen to me. After the attack, the village was in chaos. The political situation was unstable. Iwa and Kumo were circling like vultures. If they knew Minato had a son, they would have sent every assassin they had to kill you. You were a target from the moment you took your first breath. So you hid me? Naruto asked, his voice shaking. We had to hide your lineage, Jiraiya insisted. It was the only way to keep you safe. I couldn't stay in the village. I had to manage the spy network. I had to track Orochimaru. I had to protect the village from the outside so Hiruzen could protect it from the inside. Protect? Naruto laughed. It was a broken, jagged sound. He held up the scroll. Is this protection? He threw the black scroll at Jiraiya's chest. Jiraiya caught it reflexively. The heavy parchment hit his palm with a slap. Read it, Naruto commanded. The authority in his voice was terrifyingly adult. Read the part about conditioning. Read the part about isolation. Jiraiya looked down at the scroll. He recognized the seal. He recognized Hiruzen's handwriting. He unrolled it to the section Naruto had indicated. He read. His eyes scanned the clinical, bureaucratic language. Foster isolation to induce reliance. Resentment of the civilian populace is to be permitted. Prevention of ego development. Jiraiya's face strained of color. He read it again. And a third time. He looked up at Naruto. The boy wasn't looking at him with anger anymore. He was looking at him with disgust. I didn't know about this, Jiraiya whispered. You're a spy, Naruto spat. You know everything. You're the great Toad Sage. I knew about the secrecy, Jiraiya said, his voice rising, desperate to defend himself. I agreed that your name should be Uzumaki. I agreed that you shouldn't know about Minato until you were a Chunin, until you could defend yourself. But this, he looked at the scroll again, revulsion curling in his stomach. This is indoctrination, Jiraiya murmured. Manufacturing loyalty through trauma. He didn't want a grandson, Naruto said, repeating the line that had been burning in his brain all day. He wanted a dog. A loyal dog that would only eat from his hand because everyone else kicked it. Hiruzen. Jiraiya trailed off. He tried to reconcile the image of his benevolent teacher, the professor who taught him the will of fire, with the cold calculator who wrote these orders. He did it for the village, Jiraiya said weakly. It was a reflex. An excuse he had used 1,000 times for the dark deeds of ninjas. Don't, Naruto warned, his eyes flashing red. Don't you dare say it was for the village. He sacrificed me for the village. He made my life a living hell on purpose. And you let him. I trusted him. Jiraiya shouted back, the pain evident in his voice. He was the Hokage. I thought he was keeping you safe. I thought he was giving you a normal life, or as normal as a Jinchuriki could have. I stayed away because I thought my presence would endanger you. I thought. Jiraiya stopped. He looked at the scroll in his hand. I thought wrong, he whispered. You abandoned me, Naruto said. And now you show up, 12 years late, and you want to play teacher? You want to teach me the Rasengan? My dad's jutsu? It is your birthright, Naruto. I don't want it, Naruto said. I don't want anything from you. I don't want your jutsus. I don't want your toads. And I don't want your excuses. Naruto, be reasonable, Jiraiya pleaded. He stepped forward again, closing the distance. The exams are in a month. You are facing Niji Hyuga. Without proper training you will lose. Or worse, the fox will take over. I am the only one who can teach you to control the seal. I'll figure it out, Naruto said. You can't. The seal is complex. It was designed by Minato. Only I understand the key. Then I'll break it, Naruto snarled. Don't be a fool. Jiraiya snapped, his Sannin aura flaring. This isn't a game. Orochimaru is in the village. There are enemies everywhere. If you walk away now, out of stubbornness, you are walking into a grave. Naruto looked up at the towering figure of the sage. For the first time, he didn't feel small. He felt concentrated. I'd rather die in a grave I dug myself, Naruto said coldly, than live in the kennel you built for me. Naruto turned around. He channeled chakra to his feet. Naruto! Jiraiya reached out. Naruto didn't look back. He leaped. He launched himself onto the roof of the warehouse, then to the next building, and the next. He moved with a speed and silence that Ebisu had never managed to teach him, driven by a fuel far more potent than the will of fire. He was driven by the will of the Forsaken. Jiraiya stood alone in the alley. He looked at his empty hand where Naruto had been. He looked at the scroll in his other hand. He felt a single raindrop hit his cheek. Then another. The sky opened up, and a summer storm began to wash the filth of the alleyway, but it couldn't wash away the stain on Jiraiya's soul. He gripped the scroll until the paper crinkled. Sarutobi, Jiraiya growled, a dangerous edge entering his voice. He turned and marched toward the Hokage tower. He wasn't walking as a pervert, or a writer, or a goofball. He was walking as the Toad Sage, and he was coming to collect a debt. Part 2, The Professor and the Student. The Hokage tower was quiet at night. The administrative hustle bustled during the day, but after hours, it was a fortress of solitude. Hiruzen Sarutobi sat at his desk. The room was dark, lit only by a single lamp and the glow of the village outside the window. He was reviewing budget reports for the upcoming exam finals. He paused. He took the pipe from his mouth and exhaled a plume of smoke. You can come in, Jiraiya, Hiruzen said to the empty room. You never were one for knocking. The window shattered. It wasn't a stealthy entry. Jiraiya didn't open the latch. He simply walked through the glass, shattering the pane into 1,000 diamond shards that glittered on the carpet. Hiruzen didn't flinch. He just watched the glass settle. That was unnecessary, Hiruzen said calmly. The window was unlocked. Everything about this is unnecessary, Jiraiya said. He marched across the room, his wooden sandals clacking loudly on the floor. He stopped in front of the desk and slammed the black scroll down on top of the budget reports. Thwack! Hiruzen looked at the scroll. He didn't look surprised. He looked resigned. I see, Hiruzen said. So the breach in Sector 4 was Naruto. You knew? Jiraiya asked, his voice shaking with suppressed rage. I suspected, Hiruzen corrected. An archive seal broken by brute force and Uzumaki biosignatures. It was a logical deduction. And you didn't send ANBU to drag him in? To do what, Jiraiya? Hiruzen looked up, his old eyes weary. Wipe his memory. Lock him up? The boy is the Jinchuriki. If I corner him, the fox comes out. I decided to wait. To see what he would do. He came to me, Jiraiya shouted. He came to me and he threw this in my face. He asked me if I knew that you were brainwashing him. Lower your voice, Hiruzen commanded. The sudden sharpness in his tone reminded Jiraiya that this man was the god of shinobi. We are not alone in this village. I don't care who hears. Jiraiya leaned over the desk. Conditioning? Isolation protocols? Prevention of ego development? Sensei, what the hell is this? This isn't the will of fire. This is root doctrine. This is Danzo's filth. Hiruzen closed his eyes. He leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking. Danzo proposed the methods, Hiruzen admitted quietly. But I signed the order. Why? Jiraiya pleaded. Minato was like a son to you. Naruto is his legacy. How could you do this to him? Hiruzen stood up. He walked to the window, staring out at the rain-slicked village. Do you remember the night the Nine Tails attacked Jiraiya? Of course I remember. The village was broken, Hiruzen said softly. Half our forces dead. The fourth Hokage dead. The Uchiha clan restless. The other nations were waiting for a moment of weakness to strike. If they knew the Jinchuriki was a child, if they knew he was Minato's son, they would have come for him. Or worse, someone within the village would have tried to use him for a coup, so you hid his parentage. I agreed to that. Jiraiya argued. But why the isolation? Why make him an outcast? Hiruzen turned around. His face was hard. Because a Jinchuriki must be loyal to the village above all else, Hiruzen said. If Naruto had been raised by a clan, his loyalty would be to the clan. If he had been raised by you, his loyalty would be to you. I needed him to belong to Konoha. To look at the Hokage hat, and see it as his only salvation. You wanted him to be desperate, Jiraiya realized, horrified. I wanted him to be ours, Hiruzen corrected. The Nine Tails is a nuclear weapon, Jiraiya. We cannot afford for the weapon to have an identity crisis. We cannot afford for him to think he is special, or entitled, or separate from the hierarchy. He needed to believe that his only path to acceptance was through service to the state. He's a child. Jiraiya roared. He is a sacrifice. Hiruzen roared back, slamming his hand on the windowsill. The chakra pressure in the room spiked, cracking the plaster on the walls. Minato sacrificed his life, Hiruzen said, his voice trembling with emotion. Kushina sacrificed her life. And yes, I sacrificed Naruto's happiness. I took the hate of the village onto myself. I let them hate him, and I let him cling to me, because it kept the weapon stable for 12 years. And now? Jiraiya asked coldly. Is it stable now? Hiruzen slumped. The anger drained out of him, leaving him looking ancient. No, Hiruzen whispered. The seal is weakening. Orochimaru is moving. And now, the boy knows. He hates you, Jiraiya said. He wanted it to hurt. He looks at you and he sees a monster. You didn't make him loyal, sensei. You made him an enemy, perhaps, Hiruzen said. He walked back to his desk and sat down heavily. But he is still a shinobi of the leaf. He has nowhere else to go. Don't be so sure, Jiraiya warned. He rejected my training. He rejected the summoning contract. He's out there right now, alone, with a belly full of fox chakra and a heart full of betrayal. If Orochimaru gets to him, if he offers him a way out. Hiruzen picked up his pipe. His hands were shaking slightly as he tried to light it. Then you must find him, Jiraiya. Bring him back. By force if necessary. Jiraiya looked at his teacher. He looked at the man he had idolized for 40 years. And he realized that Shikamaru Nara was right. The king was just a piece on the board, and he would sacrifice anything to stay in play. No, Jiraiya said. Hiruzen froze. The match burned down to his fingers. What? I won't hunt him, Jiraiya said. I won't drag him back to your cage. If he comes back, it will be because he chooses to. Because he's Minato's son, and he's better than us. Jiraiya turned to the shattered window. I'm going to stay in the village for the exams, Jiraiya said, his back to the Hokage. But I'm done with your orders, Hiruzen. And if Danzo touches him, I will level this tower. Jiraiya leaped out into the rain. Hiruzen sat alone in the dark office. The rain blew in through the broken window, soaking the carpet. He looked at the scroll on his desk. Minato, Hiruzen whispered to the shadows. I fear I have failed you. From the shadows of the corner, a figure emerged. Bandages covering one eye. A cane tapping on the floor. Sentimentality is a weakness, Hiruzen, Danzo Shimura said. I told you the conditioning required a harder hand. You were too soft with the carrot, and not hard enough with the stick. Get out, Danzo, Hiruzen said, not looking up. The boy is a liability now, Danzo said. If he knows the truth, he cannot be trusted. Root should intervene. If you touch him, Hiruzen said, his voice low and lethal, Jiraiya will kill you. And I will let him. Danzo narrowed his eye. You are letting the village burn to save your conscience. Get out. Danzo turned and melted back into the shadows. Hiruzen put his head in his hands. The Red Spiral Protocol had been designed to save the village. Instead, it was threatening to tear it apart from the inside out. Part 3, The Darkest Hour. The rain hammered down on the forest of death. Naruto sat under the massive root of a sprawling banyan tree. He was shivering. Not from the cold, the fox's chakra kept his body temperature unnaturally high, but from the crash. The adrenaline of the confrontation was gone. The rage was ebbing away, leaving a hollow, aching void in his chest. He was 12 years old. And he was completely alone. He pulled his knees to his chest. I don't need them, he muttered. I don't need the old man. I don't need the pervy sage. I don't need Sakura or Kakashi. Lies! Kurama's voice drifted up from the seal. You are a pack animal, little kid. You crave a pack. That is why this hurts. Shut up, Naruto said. He didn't have the energy to argue. They broke your pack. Kurama continued. They scattered it before you were born. And the pack you tried to join rejected you. Naruto looked at his hands. They were muddy. What do I do, Fox? Naruto asked. It was a moment of supreme weakness. I can't beat Neji like this. Ebisu was right. My basics suck. I can't control my chakra because of you. Because of me? The fox laughed. No. You can't control your chakra because you are fighting me. You are trying to push a river upstream. If I let you out, you'll kill everyone. I might, the fox admitted. But maybe they deserve it. Naruto shook his head. No. Not Iruka. Not Tsuchi. Not Konohamaru. Then don't let me out, Kurama said. Use me. Stop treating me like a prisoner and start treating me like a battery. You are an Uzumaki. Your body was built to hold me. The seal is just a door. You have the key. Naruto closed his eyes. He went into his mindscape. The sewer was flooding. The water was rising. Naruto stood before the cage. He looked at the paper seal on the lock. Jiraiya said Minato made this, Naruto said. My dad. He did, Kurama rumbled. He died doing it. Why? Naruto asked. Why put you in me? Why not kill you? Because he couldn't kill me, Kurama said. And because he believed. Believed what? That you would master me, Kurama said. He didn't seal me in you to curse you, Kit. He sealed me in you because he thought his son would be strong enough to turn the Ninetales into a weapon for the village. Naruto stared at the beast. He trusted me? Naruto whispered. He didn't even know me, and he trusted me? More than the third ever did, Kurama confirmed. Naruto felt a spark. A tiny, fragile spark in the darkness. His father hadn't abandoned him. His father had bet everything on him. His father had looked at a newborn baby and said, this boy can hold the strongest demon in the world. He thought I was strong, Naruto said. Tears finally spilled over, mixing with the sewer water. He wiped his eyes. Okay, Naruto said. Okay. He looked at the fox. I'm not doing this for the village, Naruto said. And I'm not doing it for you. Then who? For him, Naruto said. To prove he was right. And to prove the old man was wrong. Naruto stepped forward. He didn't reach for the seal to tear it off. He reached through the bars. Give me chakra, Naruto demanded. Not the angry stuff. The pure stuff. We're going to filter it. Oh? The fox grinned, exposing rows of razor-sharp teeth. And how do you propose to do that, little jailer? Shadow clones, Naruto said. If I make 1,000 clones, and we all pull a little bit, we can dilute the hate. We can separate the power from the poison. The fox paused. It blinked. Brute force filtration, Kurama mused. Stupid. Inefficient. Dangerous. I like it. Back in the real world, under the banyan tree, Naruto stood up. He crossed his fingers. The signature cross seal. Multi-shadow clone jutsu. Poof. The forest exploded with smoke. 10 clones appeared. Then 20. Then 100. Usually, Naruto used clones to gang up on enemies. Today, he sat them all down in a circle. Okay guys, the real Naruto said to his army of cells. We have 1 month. We aren't sleeping. We aren't eating much. We are going to figure out how to be an Uzumaki. The clones nodded grimly. There were no jokes. No pranks. Naruto sat in the center. He closed his eyes. He didn't need a teacher. He had 1,000 of himself. And he had a point to prove. From the darkness of the canopy, a root broke silently. A masked figure watched. An ANBU with a blank white mask. No animal markings. Root. The operative watched the boy summon 100 clones. He watched the red chakra begin to bleed out, controlled, cycling through the clones like a living network. The operative made a hand sign. Target located. He didn't attack. He faded back into the wood. He had to report to Danzo. The Jinchuriki was unstable, powerful, and unguarded. The hunt was about to begin.